Picture this. The gods of Asgard are gathered for a feast, their golden hall echoing with laughter, until suddenly, the trickster Loki crashes the party. He spins lies so clever they blur into truth, stirs up chaos with a grin, and leaves everyone questioning their own beliefs. Now flip the scene to the dense forests of West Africa, where Anansi the spider weaves his webs not just to catch flies, but to ensnare the proud and the powerful in tales that reveal their own folly. What's fascinating isn't just that these characters exist, it's that they appear everywhere. From Coyote's cunning in Native American legends to Hermes' playful thefts in Greek myths, every culture has a trickster. And that raises a tantalizing question. Why do these rule breakers, these masters of mischief, show up in stories across continents and centuries? The answer lies in something deeper than entertainment. Tricksters aren't just chaotic nuisances, they're cultural mirrors, reflecting truths we're often too afraid to say outright. They challenge authority, expose hypocrisy, and shake us out of complacency. Think about it. When Loki tricks the gods, he's not just causing trouble, he's revealing their arrogance. When Anansi outsmarts the sky god, he's showing that even the mighty can be humbled. These stories aren't just fun, they're survival tools. They teach us to question, adapt, and find creative solutions when the rules no longer serve us. And that's the paradox. The very figures who seem to undermine order are often the ones keeping society balanced. So what's the real magic behind the trickster's role? It's their ability to hold two opposing forces at once: chaos and wisdom, destruction and renewal. They remind us that growth often comes from disruption, that laughter can be as powerful as a sword, and that sometimes the best way to protect a system is to poke holes in it. In this video, we'll unravel the trickster's hidden blueprint, how they safeguard cultures by breaking the rules, why every society needs a little mischief to stay healthy, and what these ancient stories can teach us about navigating our own complex world. Ready to see chaos in a whole new light? Let's begin. Across the globe, in every corner of human storytelling, you'll find the same mischievous grin staring back at you, sometimes from a fox, a spider, or even a god in disguise. Take the Native American coyote, forever darting between hero and fool, stealing fire only to drop it, teaching hard lessons wrapped in laughter. Or Japan's kitsune, those shape-shifting foxes whose pranks expose human vanity, leaving behind wisdom in their playful chaos. Then there's Krishna, the Hindu deity who, as a child, but a thief and flute player, upends expectations, showing that divinity itself can wear the mask of a troublemaker. What's startling isn't just their similarities, it's how these figures emerge independently, as if woven into the fabric of human imagination. Anthropologists have long puzzled over this phenomenon. Some argue tricksters act as cultural pressure valves, allowing societies to vent frustrations against rigid hierarchies through stories. Others see them as primal teachers, using humor and shock to imprint vital lessons, like how Coyote's disastrous antics teach respect for nature, or how Anansi's webs remind us that even the weak can outwit the strong. But perhaps the most compelling theory ties them to something deeper, the human mind's craving for balance. We instinctively know that too much order stifles, that rules, unchecked, become cages. Tricksters are the counterweight, the necessary chaos that keeps systems alive by testing their limits. Look closer, and you'll see their mischief follows a hidden logic. Loki's schemes in Norse myths often lead to unexpected innovations, like the creation of Thor's hammer, forged in the aftermath of his deceptions. Even Eshu, the Yoruba trickster, who delights in causing misunderstandings, ultimately reveals the misunderstandings already festering beneath the surface. Their chaos isn't random, it's surgical, cutting through pretense to expose what needs to change. That's the trickster's paradox. They break the rules to protect the whole, like a forest fire that clears dead wood so new growth can rise. And in a world that's always changing, maybe we need these eternal disruptors, not to destroy, but to remind us how to adapt. Carl Jung saw something profound in these chaotic figures, not just troublemakers, but mirrors of our deepest, messiest selves. He called the trickster a shadow archetype, the part of us that society forces into hiding. Our raw instincts, taboo desires, even the childish impulses we're taught to suppress. But here's the twist: those repressed energies don't disappear. They bubble up in myths, wearing the mask of the trickster to say what we can't. When Loki shatters the decorum of Asgard's feasts by insulting every god, he's not just being rude, he's voicing the quiet resentments everyone feels but won't admit. The Norse gods' outrage isn't just at Loki, it's at seeing their own pettiness reflected back at them. Modern psychology reveals why this is so powerful. Humor and rebellion aren't just coping mechanisms, they're release valves for societal pressure. Think of the court jester, the one person allowed to mock the king without losing their head. In medieval Europe, that wasn't just entertainment. It was a way to expose truths too dangerous to speak plainly. The trickster plays the same role in myth, dancing on the edge of acceptability to show us where our rules have grown too rigid. Even today, stand-up comedians follow this ancient blueprint. Their jokes about politics or social norms let audiences laugh at systems they feel powerless to change. But the trickster's true genius lies in balance. They don't just tear things down, they reveal what needs rebuilding. Take the Winnebago trickster Wachankaga, who starts as a gluttonous buffoon but ends up shaping the world through his mistakes, accidentally creating rivers while fleeing his own chaos. Or the Greek god Hermes, whose very first act is stealing Apollo's cattle, only to invent the lyre from a tortoise shell moments later. Destruction and creation woven together. Jung would argue this isn't random, it's the psyche's way of course correcting. When a culture leans too far into control, the trickster emerges to tug it back toward flexibility, reminding us that growth requires both order and spontaneity. This duality makes tricksters timeless. They're not just relics of ancient myths but alive in modern stories. From Bugs Bunny outwitting hunters to Deadpool breaking the fourth wall. Each one carries that same subversive spark, challenging us to question who holds power and why, because ultimately, the trickster isn't just a character. They're the part of us that refuses to accept the world as it's given, that whispers, "What if there's another way?" Consider Br Rabbit, that quick-witted hero of African-American folklore, spinning tales where his cunning defeats stronger foes not through brute force, but by turning their own arrogance against them. In stories born from the pain of slavery and oppression, the trickster becomes more than entertainment. He's a covert act of resistance. When Br Rabbit pleads, "Don't throw me in that briar patch," knowing full well it's his escape, he's not just tricking his captors, he's revealing a profound truth about power. The weak can triumph by mastering the rules of the game, then rewriting them. This is the trickster's brilliance. They don't just break rules, they expose who those rules truly serve. Now shift the lens to Eshu, the Yoruba trickster who thrives on ambiguity. Where Br Rabbit confronts oppression head-on, Eshu operates in the gray spaces between fate and free will. In one tale, he sets two friends against each other by wearing a hat that's black on one side, white on the other. Each man sees only half the truth, and their conflict reveals the dangers of absolute certainty. Here, the trickster isn't just challenging authority. He's questioning the very frameworks we use to understand the world. Hierarchical societies often cast tricksters as destabilizers, but in more egalitarian cultures, they're harmonizers, reminding people that no single perspective holds all the answers. This duality shines through in Native American tales where Coyote, the ultimate boundary crosser, blurs the line between hero and fool. In one story, he steals fire from the gods to give to humanity, but fumbles the delivery, scattering it haphazardly across the land. The lesson: progress is messy, and even well-intentioned rebellion has unintended consequences. Yet without Coyote's chaos, humanity would remain in darkness. Tricksters don't just critique power, they force societies to evolve. When old systems grow brittle, these chaotic figures become the catalysts for change, prying open spaces where new ideas can take root. What's striking is how these stories adapt to their cultural soil. In rigidly structured societies, tricksters often target the powerful. Think of China's Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, whose rebellious antics defy heaven's bureaucracy. But in communities where balance is prized, like the Maori of New Zealand, tricksters like Maui navigate between mischief and benevolence, stealing fire not for personal gain but to warm his people. The trickster's role shifts to meet the needs of the culture, acting as a mirror for its deepest tensions and unspoken desires. Today, this ancient archetype lives on in unexpected ways. Modern tricksters appear in political satire, viral memes, even hacker culture. Anywhere subversion reveals hidden truths. When a comedian skewers hypocrisy or a whistleblower exposes corruption, they're walking the trickster's path, disrupting the status quo to provoke something better. Because ultimately, the trickster's greatest trick isn't deception, it's transformation. They remind us that societies, like stories, need friction to grow. Without the Loki who shatters complacency, the Anansi who humbles the proud, or the Biara rabbit who outthinks the strong, we risk mistaking the way things are for the way they must always be. The trickster's greatest gift isn't just chaos, it's the kind of chaos that forces the world to move forward. Take Maui, the Polynesian demigod, who didn't just steal fire from the gods on a whim. He did it because humanity was shivering in the dark, trapped in stagnation. His theft wasn't destruction, it was liberation. The same thread runs through Greek myth, where Prometheus defies Zeus to bring fire to mortals, knowing full well the price he'd pay. These aren't stories of mindless rebellion. They're blueprints for how disruption becomes necessary when systems grow too rigid, too complacent. This idea echoes in modern economics as creative destruction, the principle that innovation often requires tearing down the old to make way for the new. Think of how startups disrupt entire industries or how activists challenge outdated laws. The trickster archetype embodies this same energy in myth. Loki's schemes in Asgard don't just cause trouble, they expose the gods' vulnerabilities, forcing them to adapt. When he engineers the death of Baldur, the most beloved god, it's a catastrophe, but it also sets in motion events that lead to Ragnarok, the end of the old world and the birth of a new one. Destruction and creation intertwined. Even in smaller, quieter ways, tricksters push societies toward evolution. Anansi the spider doesn't just outsmart the sky god for fun. He redistributes knowledge, breaking the monopoly of the powerful. In Japanese folklore, the kitsune's pranks often reveal hidden truths, forcing communities to confront what they'd rather ignore. These stories suggest something radical, that progress doesn't come from perfect order, but from the cracks that tricksters pry open. Today, we see this same spirit in figures like whistleblowers or satirists who use subversion to expose corruption. When a comedian mocks a hypocritical leader or a hacker reveals hidden injustices, they're walking the trickster's path using chaos as a tool for accountability. Because ultimately, the trickster's role isn't just to break things. It's to remind us that protection isn't about preserving the status quo, but about ensuring the system stays flexible enough to survive its own flaws. The fire stealers, the rule breakers, the ones who laugh in the face of authority, they're not just agents of chaos. They're the immune system of culture, jolting it awake when it risks falling asleep forever. At first glance, tricksters seem like agents of pure disorder, but dig deeper and you'll find they're actually guardians in disguise. Take the Winnebago trickster Jungian, whose ridiculous antics aren't just for laughs. When he tries to spear fish by stabbing the river itself, or attempts to feed an entire village with a single grain of corn, his absurdity isn't meaningless. It's a boundary test showing society where its rules bend and where they break. These stories act like cultural stress tests, revealing the limits of social norms through humor rather than rebellion. This protective role echoes through history. Medieval court jesters were the only ones who could mock kings without punishment, their jokes acting as pressure valves for societal frustrations. In one famous anecdote, a jester tells his monarch, "You're not immortal, your taxes are." The laugh it draws lets the court confront a truth too dangerous to say outright. Tricksters in myth serve the same function. They're the ones who can ask, "What if the king is naked?" without losing their heads, using humor to expose tyranny before it solidifies. Nowhere is this more vivid than in the tale of Anansi and the sky god stories. When the deity hoards all tales for himself, Anansi doesn't storm the heavens. He outsmarts him, spinning webs of deception to bring stories back to the people. It's not just a victory for the underdog, it's a safeguard against monopoly. By redistributing knowledge, the trickster prevents the concentration of power, ensuring wisdom flows freely through society. Similar themes appear in Norse myths, where Loki's mischief often thwarts the god's worst impulses, like when he sabotages a giant's attempt to claim the sun, moon, and Freyja as payment for building Asgard's walls. But the trickster's protection isn't just societal, it's spiritual. In West African traditions, Eshu's deliberate provocations force humans to confront duality. When he wears his famous two-colored hat, sparking arguments between friends who each see only one side, he's not just causing strife. He's teaching that truth is rarely absolute, that perspective shapes reality. This mirrors the Zen Buddhist concept of the Kyosoku, the awakening stick, used to jolt meditators out of complacency. Tricksters are that stick on a cosmic scale, disrupting rigid thinking to make room for enlightenment. Even in modern indigenous practices, tricksters like the Navajo's Maiai, the Coyote, blur sacred and profane to maintain balance. When Maiai steals the stars to arrange them into constellations, he's not just playing, he's reshaping the world's order. His chaos isn't opposition to the divine, it's collaboration, ensuring the universe remains dynamic rather than frozen. This spiritual role reveals the trickster's deepest paradox. They protect by disrupting, heal by wounding, and uphold tradition by constantly challenging it. So when we dismiss tricksters as mere troublemakers, we miss their ancient assignment. They're the immune system of culture, the laughter that deflates arrogance, the chaos that prevents stagnation. Whether it's Jungian's absurd lessons or Anansi's stolen stories, their antics aren't just entertainment. They're the subtle, subversive work of keeping the world flexible enough to endure. Tricksters wear their flaws like badges of honor, but those seeming weaknesses often hide their deepest wisdom. Take Coyote in Navajo traditions, when he greedily devours all the prairie dogs only to have them burst from his belly. The lesson isn't just about gluttony. It's a visceral reminder that shortcuts backfire, and true survival requires patience and respect for balance. His failures aren't accidents. They're carefully crafted teachings disguised as blunders. Similarly, in Hindu lore, young Krishna's butter thefts aren't mere childish pranks. Each stolen pot becomes a metaphor, the divine disrupting rigid expectations, showing that devotion isn't about rule following but about joyful surrender. This mirrors the Zen tradition of koans, those paradoxical riddles like, what is the sound of one hand clapping, designed to short-circuit logical thought. Just as a Zen master might slap a student to jolt them into awareness, tricksters use absurdity to shatter complacency. Consider the Zuni tale where Coyote tries to imitate a sacred dance. Stumbling so badly he turns it into comedy, yet in his failure, he reveals the danger of performative piety. The message, spiritual growth, isn't about perfection, but about embracing the messy, unpredictable journey. What makes these figures so enduring is their dual nature. They're both fools and sages, their chaos laced with revelation. In one West African story, the trickster Legba deliberately gives terrible advice to a proud warrior, leading him into disaster. But the humiliation becomes the warrior's turning point, breaking his arrogance so true wisdom can enter. It's a spiritual gut punch, much like the biblical story of Balaam's donkey speaking truths the prophet refused to hear. Tricksters are the universe's way of whispering, "You're missing the point," through laughter rather than lectures. Even their destructive acts often seed renewal. When Loki engineers Baldur's death in Norse myth, it's an unforgivable betrayal, yet without that catastrophe, the gods would never face their own mortality, never prepare for Ragnarok's rebirth. This echoes in Japanese folklore, where the kitsune's cruelest tricks often force characters to confront hidden truths about themselves. The pain isn't pointless, it's the price of transformation, like a forest fire clearing space for new growth. Modern psychology recognizes this pattern, what Carl Jung called the transcendent function, where opposing forces, order and chaos, in this case collide to spark psychological evolution. Tricksters embody that clash. Their antics aren't random, they're cosmic adjustments, sanding down society's rough edges through what seems like mischief. When Anansi tricks the sky god into sharing stories or Maui slows the sun to lengthen the day, they're not just breaking rules, they're recalibrating the world. Perhaps that's why these figures still resonate today. In a world obsessed with productivity and perfection, the trickster reminds us that growth is non-linear, that wisdom often wears a crooked grin. They challenge us to hold contradictions, to laugh while learning, to fail forward, to see the sacred in the scandalous. After all, if a butter-stealing god or a bumbling coyote can be a spiritual guide, maybe enlightenment isn't about reaching some pristine ideal, but about dancing through the chaos with open eyes. The trickster's most fascinating contradiction lies in their ability to destroy and create in the same breath. Take Loki, the very figure whose deceptions trigger Ragnarok, the apocalyptic battle that consumes gods and giants alike. Yet without that cataclysm, there's no rebirth, no fresh world rising from the ashes. His chaos isn't just an end, it's the painful labor of a new beginning. This duality echoes in the Teelingit Raven's tale, where the trickster doesn't just steal sunlight from a greedy chief, he literally tears open the box holding it, scattering light across the world. Destruction becomes delivery, vandalism turns into generosity. This paradox isn't confined to myth. Nature itself operates on the same principle. Forest fires clear dead, wood sow seedlings can sprout, hurricanes redistribute nutrients across ecosystems. Tricksters are the narrative embodiment of this universal rhythm. In West African stories, Eshu's meddling often fractures relationships, but only to expose hidden tensions that needed addressing. The Hawaiian trickster Maui doesn't just slow the sun for fun, he reshapes time itself, stretching daylight so crops can grow and fishermen can safely return home. Even when their actions seem selfish or reckless, the ripple effects often serve the greater good. Modern science recognizes this pattern as emergent properties, how complex systems evolve through disruption. Think of how startups dismantle outdated industries or how social movements topple oppressive norms. The trickster archetype has always understood this. Progress isn't linear. The Maori trickster Maui Tikitiki, a Taranga, doesn't politely ask for fire, he wrestles it from the underworld goddess Mahuika, knowing comfort must sometimes be seized from discomfort. Similarly, in Aztec mythology, Quetzalcoatl's theft of bones from the underworld to create humanity involves deceit, violence, and ultimately, renewal. What makes these stories so enduring is their refusal to simplify morality. The raven who brings light is also the glutton who spills rivers of fish oil, creating the first estuaries. Loki fathers monsters but also gives Odin his spear and Thor his hammer. This moral ambiguity mirrors real life where breakthroughs often come from rule breakers, where innovation thrives at the edges of chaos. Silicon Valley's "disrupt or die" mantra could have been lifted straight from trickster lore. Today, we see this archetype in climate activists scaling buildings to hang banners, or hackers exposing corruption through leaks, modern tricksters using chaos as a scalpel. Even in pop culture, characters like Deadpool or Harley Quinn follow the old blueprint. Their anarchy exposes hypocrisies while pushing narratives forward. The trickster's genius lies in their refusal to accept binaries. They remind us that creation isn't always gentle, that sometimes you have to crack a few eggs or worlds to make an omelet. This tension between wrecking and rebuilding isn't just mythic. It's woven into how societies evolve. When a stand-up comedian punches up at power or a graffiti artist turns a wall into a protest, they're walking the trickster's ancient path. Not mindless destruction, but the kind that clears space for something better. Because ultimately, the trickster's greatest lesson might be this: sometimes, to protect what matters, you first have to shake it until the illusions fall away. Look around today's pop culture landscape, and you'll spot tricksters grinning back at you from every screen. Only now, they're wearing clown makeup or spandex. Take the Joker, chaos incarnate in a purple suit, whose entire purpose is to peel back the veneer of Gotham's order, exposing the rot beneath. He's not just a villain, he's a dark mirror forcing Batman and the audience to confront the fragility of the systems we rely on. Then there's Deadpool, the merc with a mouth who doesn't just break the fourth wall, he demolishes it, turning superhero tropes into punchlines while somehow saving the day. Even Bugs Bunny, that carrot-chomping icon, follows the ancient trickster playbook, outwitting hunters, mocking authority, and always leaving his foes red-faced with a sly, "Hey, what's up, Doc?" But modern tricksters aren't confined to fiction. Scroll through social media, and you'll find their digital descendants in viral memes and satirical accounts. Think of how at Drill's absurdist tweets or the surreal humor of Weird Twitter expose societal absurdities by amplifying them to ridiculous extremes. These aren't just jokes, they're cultural pressure valves, using laughter to critique everything from politics to consumerism. Even pranksters like Mr. Beast or Sacha Baron Cohen operate as trickster figures, staging elaborate stunts that blur the line between entertainment and social commentary. When Cohen's Borat character tricks unsuspecting Americans into revealing their prejudices, he's not just provoking laughs, he's holding up a funhouse mirror to hypocrisy, much like Anansi exposing the sky god's greed. Yet there's a razor's edge to this energy. For every trickster who uses chaos to reveal truth, there's another who revels in destruction for its own sake. The Joker's philosophy, that all it takes is one bad day to break someone, shows the danger when mischief curdles into nihilism, Online, this plays out in the rise of trolling, divorced from any higher purpose, where disruption becomes an end in itself. The line between trickster and tormentor thins when the goal shifts from enlightenment to entropy. History's tricksters understood this balance. Loki's schemes often backfired on him, and Coyote's greed left him humiliated. Their stories carried built-in warnings. Chaos without wisdom is just calamity. Today's digital tricksters would do well to remember that. When satire devolves into cynicism or pranks lose their moral compass, the archetype's power dims. The best tricksters, whether ancient or algorithmic, know their role isn't just to break things, but to break them open, revealing something worth rebuilding. Even the most beloved tricksters have moments where their mischief curdles into something darker, where the line between playful chaos and genuine harm blurs. Take Loki's arc in Norse mythology, where his pranks evolve into genuine malice, orchestrating Baldur's death and refusing to mourn, then sinking further by insulting every god at a feast until his bonds are forged. This isn't the clever disruptor exposing hypocrisy anymore. It's chaos for chaos' sake, a lesson in what happens when the trickster's gifts are untethered from purpose. The same pattern echoes in corporate scandals, where so-called disruptors break rules not to innovate but to exploit, like the Rano's Elizabeth Holmes, who spun deception into a billion-dollar house of cards, or crypto scammers peddling get-rich-quick schemes wrapped in rebellious rhetoric. The shadow side of the trickster isn't just rebellion, it's the void where subversion loses its soul. This tension isn't new. Cultures have long recognized that unchecked trickster energy risks tipping into toxicity, which is why so many societies ritualize it. Carnival traditions across Europe and Latin America are perfect examples of a designated time when masks go on, hierarchies flip, and chaos reigns, but only within strict temporal and social boundaries. In Venice, the elaborate costumes and satirical plays of Carnival let citizens mock the powerful, while in Trinidad and Tobago, calypso music's biting lyrics hold leaders accountable under the guise of celebration. These aren't free-for-alls, they're pressure valves, carefully contained to prevent real destabilization. Even the ancient Roman festival of Saturnalia, where masters served slaves and norms were inverted, lasted just a week, a reminder that reversals are healing only when temporary. The digital age struggles with this balance. Online, the trickster's legacy lives in meme culture and satire, but also in the darker corners of trolling where anonymity turns mischief into cruelty. Take the swatting phenomenon, where pranksters fake emergencies to send armed police to unsuspecting victims' homes. What starts as a warped joke echoes Loki's worst impulses, disruption divorced from any higher purpose, inflicting harm for the thrill of chaos. Yet platforms like Reddit also host subversive humor that exposes hypocrisy, proving the archetype's dual potential. The difference lies in intent. Ancient tricksters might humiliate the proud, but they did it to restore balance, not to revel in suffering. Perhaps the most profound lesson comes from indigenous traditions, where tricksters often face consequences for overreach. In Plains tribe stories, when Coyote's greed or lust goes too far, he's punished sometimes through his own schemes backfiring, other times by community intervention. These endings aren't just moralistic, they're ecological, mirroring how ecosystems self-correct when a species oversteps. Modern societies could learn from this. When tech billionaires frame recklessness as disruption or conspiracy theorists cloak paranoia as questioning narratives, they're exploiting the trickster's cloak without its wisdom. Real trickster energy doesn't just break systems, it remakes them with accountability woven into the chaos. That's why so many cultures ritualize the archetype, to harness its power without letting it consume. From Japan's mischievous tanuki statues, believed to bring prosperity when honored but misfortune when ignored, to to the Ashanti practice of telling Anansi stories to children as both entertainment and moral instruction, the message is clear. The trickster must be both embraced and bounded like fire, a force that warms when controlled but rages unchecked. Even Loki, for all his villainy, isn't purely evil in Norse myth. He's a necessary force gone awry, a warning etched in legend. Chaos without purpose is just destruction wearing a clever mask. April Fool's Day might seem like harmless fun prank calls, fake headlines, whoopee cushions, but dig deeper and you'll find an ancient ritual hiding beneath the laughter. For 24 hours, the usual rules are suspended. Bosses play jokes on employees, news outlets publish absurd stories, even tech giants like Google join in, announcing fake products like Google Tulip for communicating with flowers. It's collective mischief with an unspoken pact. No one gets hurt and tomorrow order returns. This isn't just modern frivolity, it's a safety valve, a way to let off steam without blowing up the boiler. Societies have always known that suppressing rebellion entirely is dangerous. Better to channel it into controlled chaos, like a controlled burn preventing wildfires. Now fly south to Mexico's Day of the Dead, where skeletons grin and mock the living. Katrina figures, those elegant bone-faced ladies, aren't just decorations, they're trickster energy in physical form, reminding everyone that death laughs at status. For a few days, hierarchies flatten. Children eat sugar skulls inscribed with their own names, dancing with mortality in a way that would unsettle most cultures. Yet this ritualized rebellion serves a profound purpose. By laughing at what terrifies us, we disarm it. Compare this to ancient Rome's Saturnalia, where masters served slaves and gambling was legal in the streets. Or medieval Europe's Feast of Fools, where lowly clergy wore bishops' robes and sang obscene hymns in church. These weren't just parties, they were societal shock absorbers. The psychology behind these festivals is fascinating. They tap into what anthropologists call liminal space, a temporary zone where normal rules don't apply. Think of Mardi Gras beads flying through the air, or Spain's La Tomatina festival, where thousands pelt each other with tomatoes. For one chaotic hour, a town square becomes a battleground of pulp and laughter. These moments of sanctioned anarchy do something remarkable. They diffuse tension that might otherwise fester. A peasant who gets to mock his king during carnival is less likely to revolt come spring. A worker pranking her boss on April Fool's Day vents frustrations without risking her job. The trickster's chaos contained within ritual becomes a tool for stability. But the benefits aren't just societal, they're deeply personal. Modern psychology shows that playfulness and subversion are vital for mental health. When we engage in harmless rule-breaking, whether through costume, satire, or pranks, we activate parts of our brain that thrive on creativity and spontaneity. Ever notice how laughter during a comedy roast feels cathartic? Or why mischief nights before Halloween persist despite officials' frowns? It's the same impulse that drove medieval villagers to elect a boy bishop or ancient Greeks to honor Hermes with raucous processions. These acts aren't just releases, they're resets, shaking us out of rigid thinking patterns. Consider Japan's Hadaka Matsuri, where thousands of near-naked men jostle for sacred tokens in a riotous scramble. It looks like madness, but participants describe it as purifying, a physical manifestation of the trickster's role in stripping away pretenses. Similarly, in Bali, the Ogo Ogo parade features grotesque papier-mâché monsters representing negative energies which are later burned. The message is clear: by embodying chaos temporarily, we can release it. This mirrors cognitive behavioral therapy techniques where patients externalize anxieties through humor or role play. The Tricksters' festivals, it turns out, were early forms of collective therapy. What's striking is how these traditions adapt to modern life. Flash mobs, those spontaneous public performances that bewildered shoppers in the 2000s, channeled the same trickster spirit, disrupting routines to spark joy. Even viral TikTok trends like pretending to faint in grocery aisles are digital age iterations of this ancient itch to upend norms safely. The mediums change, but the human need remains, to occasionally step outside the lines, if only to remember why they exist. Because ultimately, the Tricksters' festivals teach us something vital about balance. Too much order stifles, too much chaos terrifies. But in the space between where laughter cracks the mask of rigidity, we find the sweet spot where societies and souls stay supple enough to endure. Imagine facing a problem so stubborn that every logical solution fails until suddenly you think like Loki. You sidestep the rules entirely, turning the obstacle into a joke, a game, or even a prop in your own mental theater. This is the trickster's gift to personal growth, not just breaking rules but realizing some were illusions all along. Psychologists call this cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift perspectives like a shapeshifter, and studies show playful thinking literally rewires the brain. When researchers at Northwestern University had subjects role-play as eccentric poets or rigid librarians, the poets solved creative puzzles 32% faster. Your inner trickster isn't just mischief, it's a survival mechanism dressed in laughter. One practical way to harness this, try journaling from your trickster persona. Next time you're stuck, grab a notebook and answer as if you're Anansi the spider or Biara rabbit. How would I con my way out of this? The answers might start as absurd, bribing your boss with imaginary cookies, mailing your tax forms to a fictional kingdom, but somewhere in that chaos, a real solution often hides. Play therapists use similar techniques with children, observing how kids process trauma faster when allowed to subvert reality through fantasy. There's power in metaphor, in treating life's villains like cartoon adversaries who can be outwitted rather than overpowered. The healing role of tricksters runs deeper than problem-solving. Indigenous traditions often cast them as wounded healers like the Navajo Coyote, whose foolishness leads him into disasters, but whose resilience teaches others how to rise. Modern psychology echoes this. Trauma specialist Dr. Peter Levine found that survivors who cultivate playful irreverence, dark humor, imaginative reframing recover from PTSD more effectively than those stuck in rigid victim narratives. Even Freud acknowledged the therapeutic value of jokes, calling them society's way of venting taboos safely. When a patient laughs at their own pain through a trickster's lens, they're not denying it, they're disarming its power. Consider the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold, not hiding cracks but celebrating them. Trickster energy works the same way. It doesn't erase life's fractures, it turns them into features, saying, "Look how cleverly I mended." Research from the University of California shows that employees who approach workplace conflicts with playful humor report 40% less stress than those relying solely on formal complaints. The trickster doesn't just heal individuals, it repairs systems by exposing their absurdities. So where does this leave us with permission? To laugh at our own rigidity, to rewrite personal myths that no longer serve us, to occasionally drop the mask of competence and let the chaotic, creative self take the wheel. After all, the next time you hit a wall, remember, Coyote didn't climb over it. He dug under, walked around, or convinced the wall it wanted to be a bridge. Growth isn't always about pushing harder. Sometimes it's about tricking the universe into giving you a better game to play. Beneath the trickster's laughter lies a surprising vocation, healer. Take the Cherokee tale of the Octina, a monstrous serpent whose mere gaze could kill. Warriors who tried to slay it with brute force failed until a cunning outsider arrived. Instead of attacking, he fed the beast glowing stones, tricking it into devouring its own fiery venom until it perished. The story isn't just about triumph. It's a blueprint for how wit can neutralize toxins too vast for direct confrontation. Modern therapists call this paradoxical intervention, like prescribing insomnia patients the task of staying awake, tricking their anxiety into dissolving. The Octina's defeater wasn't just clever, he was medicine disguised as mischief. This healing role shines in shamanic traditions, where tricksters often serve as intermediaries between realms. The Sami people's Stalo, a grotesque yet oddly wise figure, bridges the human and spirit worlds through riddles and reversals. In healing rituals, shamans might channel Stalo's energy to trick illness into leaving, mirroring how the Yoruba trickster Eshu confuses diseases by walking backward in ceremonies. These acts aren't deception, they're linguistic surgery, using absurdity to cut through rigid patterns of suffering. Contemporary psychology echoes this. Narrative therapy encourages patients to rewrite their life stories, much like Anansi spinning new tales from old threads. Gender fluidity amplifies the trickster's transformative power. Many mythic tricksters defy binary roles. Loki births Sleipnir as a mother while being Odin's blood brother, and the Native American Coyote alternates between male and female forms. This liminality isn't incidental, it's therapeutic. By straddling categories, tricksters expose the arbitrariness of societal divisions, offering a glimpse of wholeness. Modern gender therapists recognize this when helping clients navigate identity. Sometimes, healing requires playing with boundaries before transcending them. Even tricksters' darkest moments reveal their curative potential. When the Norse god Hertha, blind and grieving, accidentally kills his brother Baldur, it's Loki who engineers the tragedy, but also Loki who later guides Hertha through the underworld, turning perpetrator into companion. The lesson: healing isn't about erasing wounds but integrating them, as Kintsugi does with gold. Today's trauma therapies mirror this, guiding patients to reframe painful memories not as endings but as turning points. The trickster whispers, sometimes to mend the world, you must first break it open. The trickster's refusal to be pinned down extends beyond their actions. It's woven into their very identity, especially when it comes to gender. Take Loki, the Norse shapeshifter, who doesn't just change his appearance but his entire being. In one myth, he transforms into a mare to distract a giant stallion, later giving birth to Odin's 8-legged horse Sleipnir. This isn't just a bizarre detail, it's a subversion of every rigid expectation. While Viking society prized masculine strength, Loki flips the script, showing that power can come from fluidity, not fixed roles. Similarly, in Greek mythology, Bobo the crone uses her body as comedy, lifting her skirts to make the grieving goddess Demeter laugh, a moment of raw, unapologetic femininity that breaks through despair. These figures don't just bend gender norms, they snap them in half and rearrange the pieces. West African traditions take this further with Legba, the Vodou trickster who embodies androgyny. Often depicted as both young and old, male and female, Legba stands at crossroads not just of physical paths but of identity itself. In rituals, worshippers might dress Legba statues in mixed clothing, blending fabrics and colors that defy categorization. This isn't arbitrary, it's a profound statement. By embodying fluidity, Legba exposes the artificiality of social constructs, whispering a radical truth. The boxes we build around gender are as flimsy as the rules tricksters love to break. Even in tales where gender seems fixed, tricksters expose its performative nature. Consider Japan's tanuki, those raccoon dog tricksters who often shape-shift into seductive women, not to deceive, but to reveal how easily roles can be donned and discarded. A similar thread runs through Native American stories where Coyote alternates between male and female forms, sometimes within the same tale. These narratives aren't just playful, they're pedagogical, teaching that identity isn't a cage but a costume one can change as needed. Children's literature inherits this legacy, though often diluted. Pippi Longstocking, with her mismatched socks and disregard for ladylike behavior, carries a trickster's defiance of gendered expectations. Even where the Wild Things Us Max, crowned king of chaos, challenges the idea that boys must be either obedient or aggressive. He's both wild and tender, a ruler who returns home to find his supper still warm. Modern animated tricksters like Disney's Loki or Miraculous Ladybug's Plague continue this tradition, their gender play subtle but present, a wink to older myths where fluidity wasn't just accepted but sacred. What makes these stories so vital is their timing. Kids encounter tricksters when they're first learning society's rules, and the trickster's message is clear: those rules aren't stone. When a child hears about Coyote becoming a mother in one story and a warrior in the next, or sees Legba's blended form in art, they absorb a subconscious lesson. Identity is a spectrum, not a binary. In a world still grappling with rigid gender expectations, these ancient disruptors offer something revolutionary: the freedom to try on selves like masks, and the wisdom to know none of them are final. Think back to the first time you heard about Brilliance Rabbit, trapped in the briar patch, pleading not to be thrown in only to reveal it was his home all along. That moment of gleeful reversal isn't just entertainment, it's a child's first taste of subversive wisdom. Unlike moralistic fables where the tortoise always beats the hare through slow and steady virtue, trickster stories like Puss in Boots or Anansi's tales thrive on ambiguity. The cat who lies his way to nobility doesn't get punished, he gets a castle. The spider who tricks the leopard doesn't apologize, he grins. These aren't lessons about playing fair, they're lessons about playing smart. Children don't just love these stories, they crave them. There's a reason why kids will beg for the same trickster tale night after night while moral fables collect dust. It's not because they want to be naughty. It's because tricksters speak to a deeper truth. The world isn't always divided into clear heroes and villains, and sometimes the underdog wins by bending the rules. Take Puss in Boots, that whiskered con artist who transforms his penniless master into a marquis through sheer audacity. No fairy godmothers here, just cleverness, theatrics, and a willingness to bluff your way up the social ladder. For a child navigating playground hierarchies or schoolyard bullies, that's far more empowering than any "virtue is its own reward" platitude. The genius of these tales lies in their layered lessons. On the surface, they're about wit triumphing over strength, Brilliance Rabbit outthinking the fox, or the gingerbread man taunting his pursuers. But dig deeper, and they're training wheels for critical thinking. When Anansi tricks the python into stretching himself straight to be measured, only to tie him to a pole, kids aren't just laughing, they're learning to question appearances. When Loki talks his way out of a bargain by exploiting loopholes, they're absorbing the art of lateral problem solving. These stories don't hand children rigid morals, they hand them mental Swiss Army knives. Rites of passage often echo this trickster energy. Consider Native American coming-of-age rituals where boys might be sent into the wilderness to seek visions, only to encounter Coyote's teachings in disguise. Or the Ashanti tradition of Anansi, where elders tell spider tales to adolescents, subtly preparing them for life's complexities. Even modern kids testing boundaries, sneaking cookies, fibbing about homework are rehearsing the trickster's dance between rules and rebellion. It's no accident that so many trickster tales involve size, shifting, or disguise, metaphors for the terrifying, exhilarating fluidity of growing up. What makes these stories endure isn't just their mischief, it's their radical honesty. They acknowledge what sanitized fables won't, that life isn't a straight path, that power isn't always fair, and that sometimes the best way through isn't over or under, but sideways. When a 7-year-old cheers for the tiny mouse who outsmarts the lion, they're not learning to be rule breakers, they're learning to be survivors. Consider the college freshman blindfolded and spun in circles, stumbling through some bizarre fraternity initiation, or the new military recruit enduring shouted orders and absurd tasks. These rituals might seem like pointless hazing, but strip away the modern context, and you'll find echoes of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, stealing heavenly peaches and battling gods to prove his worth. Both are trials by chaos, designed to forge adaptability through controlled absurdity. The Tricksters' fingerprints are all over these rites of passage, because surviving their madness requires the same traits mythic disruptors embody: quick thinking, creative problem solving, and the ability to laugh while the world tilts sideways. Take Sun Wukong's journey in Journey to the West, his rebellious antics challenging the Jade Emperor, upending heavenly bureaucracy, aren't just defiance, they're a cosmic hazing ritual. The gods don't crush him, they test him, knowing his chaos will hone him into a protector. Similarly, when Navy SEAL candidates endure Hell Week, sleep-deprived and battered by waves, they're not just proving physical grit. They're learning to improvise, to adapt when logic fails, just as Anansi weaves lies into lifelines or Loki talks his way out of divine punishment. These trials, whether mythic or military, share a hidden curriculum, the art of thriving in unpredictability. Business cultures have quietly adopted this trickster ethos. Silicon Valley's mantra of fail fast, fail often could have been lifted straight from Coyote's playbook, where every blunder, like trying to fish by spearing the river, teaches a sharper lesson than any textbook. Entrepreneurs often face their own version of trickster trials, pitch meetings that feel like trickster riddles, investors who play the role of skeptical gods demanding miracles. The ones who succeed, they're the ones who channel Biara Rabbit, turning obstacles into advantages. When urban founders sold cereal boxes to fund their startup during the 2008 recession, they weren't just desperate. They were thinking like Anansi, using absurdity as a ladder. What unites these seemingly disconnected worlds, myth, military, and mergers, is their reliance on controlled chaos as a forge. The trickster's greatest lesson isn't rebellion for its own sake. It's the understanding that rigidity breaks while flexibility bends back stronger. Whether you're a monk in training battling illusions on a pilgrimage, a recruit crawling through mud, or a founder pitching a half-formed idea, the goal is the same: to emerge not just intact but sharper, ready to turn the next absurdity into an opportunity. Corporate boardrooms might seem like the last place you'd find trickster energy until you meet someone like Elon Musk naming his child XAEA-12, or Richard Branson crashing a tank into Times Square to promote Virgin Records. These aren't just publicity stunts, they're modern myth-making, the same disruptive spark that drove Loki to crash the god's feast or Anansi to outwit the sky god. Silicon Valley's obsession with disruptive innovation is just tricksterism in a hoodie, breaking systems to rebuild them better, or at least differently. Musk didn't just start an electric car company. He turned automotive conventions into punchlines, launching a Tesla into space like Coyote stealing the stars. Branson didn't just sell music. He turned corporate stuffiness into a joke, riding a hot air balloon across oceans like Maui lassoing the sun. But here's where the trickster's paradox kicks in. For every Musk appending fossil fuel dependencies, there's an Elizabeth Holmes spinning the Rano's blood testing lies not to heal but to hoax. The line between revolutionary and fraud hinges on intent. Ancient tricksters served the greater good even when their methods were messy. Coyote's greed often backfired, but his chaos ultimately distributed fire or stars to humanity. Holmes' deception, by contrast, offered no collective benefit, just a house of cards built on broken vials and fabricated data. This is the shadow side of corporate tricksterism: disruption divorced from wisdom, chaos without renewal. Political tricksters wield this same double-edged sword. Think of Boris Johnson's calculated buffoonery, the tousled hair, the Latin gibberish, masking a sharp strategist who used absurdity to deflect scrutiny. Or Volodymyr Zelensky, the comedian-turned-president whose early viral videos as a dancing schoolteacher suddenly made wartime leadership feel startlingly human. These figures harness the trickster's oldest tools: humor disarms, chaos reveals, and performance reshapes reality. Yet the risks are stark. When a politician's trickster energy veers into pure manipulation, like a certain orange-hued demagogue spinning alternative facts, the archetype curdles into something darker. The difference: true tricksters, from Anansi to Zelensky, use laughter to expose power. False ones use it to conceal emptiness. Perhaps the healthiest modern tricksterism thrives where it's least expected, in bureaucratic satire like Yes Minister, where a civil servant's elaborate schemes to avoid work somehow keep the government functioning. Or in guerrilla activism like the Yes Men impersonating WTO officials to reveal corporate greed. These examples follow the mythic blueprint: chaos as corrective, mischief as mirror. They remind us that the trickster's highest calling isn't destruction, it's the audacity to ask, mid-system, what if we tried dancing instead? And sometimes, against all odds, the system dances back. Voltaire didn't just write philosophy, he weaponized wit like Loki crafting a dagger from words. When the French philosopher penned Candide, skewering the aristocracy and clergy with absurdity, he wasn't just mocking power, he was exposing its hollow core. His legendary quip, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it," wasn't just principle, it was a trickster's trap, luring oppressors into defending freedoms they'd rather crush. Fast forward to Jon Stewart's Daily Show, where graphs of political hypocrisy were presented with the glee of Anansi dangling a juicy fly, his genius. Using comedy as a Trojan horse, smuggling hard truths into living rooms under the guise of punchlines. When Stewart demolished CNN's debate coverage with a side-by-side clip of their serious analysis versus his show's satire, he proved something ancient: laughter can pry open minds faster than rhetoric. Yet not all trickster tactics serve truth. Enter troll farms, the shadow version of this archetype, where chaos isn't a scalpel but a sledgehammer. Where Voltaire used pseudonyms to protect subversive ideas, modern bad faith actors spin fake identities to drown reality in noise. The difference: intent. Ancient tricksters like Nasruddin Hoja, the Sufi sage who lost his keys under a lamp because the light's better here, used absurdity to reveal wisdom. Troll farms manufacture absurdity to bury it. One illuminates, the other obfuscates. Artistic tricksters like Banksy bridge this divide. His shredded girl with balloon wasn't just a prank on auction houses. It was a mirror held up to art world hypocrisy, echoing Eschu's two-colored hat trick. By literally self-destructing a $1 million piece, he forced viewers to confront their own complicity in valuing art as commodity rather than commentary. Similarly, the Yes Men's fake WTO press conferences, where they announced reparations for colonial harms, exposed systemic indifference through theatricality. These acts follow the oldest trickster blueprint: disruption as revelation, spectacle as accountability. But the archetype's shadow looms in figures like Elizabeth Holmes or Bernie Madoff, con artists who weaponized trickster charm without the redemptive purpose. Where Anansi's deceptions redistributed power, theirs hoarded it. The line between trickster and fraud isn't just ethics, it's ecology. True tricksters, whether Voltaire or Banksy, operate like forest fires, clearing dead wood so new growth can rise. Con artists are arsonists, burning ecosystems for personal warmth. The test: ask what thrives in their wake, enlightenment or ashes. The line between a cultural trickster and a con artist is as thin as a spider's silk, but the difference is crucial. Take the fox spirit of East Asian folklore, a shape-shifting enigma who might bless a farmer with good harvests one day and ruin a proud scholar the next. Her motives are ambiguous, her tricks neither purely kind nor cruel. Contrast that with someone like Anna Delvey, the real-life scammer who swindled New York elites with fabricated wealth. Both wield charm and deception, but where the fox spirit plays with chaos to reveal deeper truths, Delvey's lies served only her own hunger. This is the dark side of the trickster archetype, when subversion loses its soul and becomes pure predation. Psychologists have a name for why we fall for these modern tricksters gone rogue: the truth default theory. Studies show most humans are wired to assume others are honest, a survival trait that helped our ancestors cooperate. Con artists exploit this instinct, weaponizing the same charm mythic tricksters used to teach lessons. Think of Bernie Madoff, whose calm confidence and fabricated returns mirrored the seductive allure of the Greek god Hermes, but without the divine wit that balances mischief with meaning. Researcher Maria Konnikova found that scams succeed not because victims are stupid, but because predators mimic trust signals we're evolutionarily primed to accept: steady eye contact, polished stories, and the illusion of reciprocity. Yet mythology has always warned us about these shadows. The kitsune of Japanese lore, a fox spirit capable of great benevolence or cruelty, reflects this duality. In one tale, a kitsune saves a lost traveler. In another, she drains a man's life force. The determining factor: intent and context. Folklorists note that kitsune stories often hinge on how humans treat them. Respect is met with aid, arrogance with punishment. Real-world grifters, however, operate without this moral compass. Their deception isn't a lesson, it's a vacuum, extracting value without giving anything back. Spotting the difference comes down to 3 clues. First, cultural tricksters disrupt to rebalance, like Loki exposing Odin's hypocrisy or Anansi redistributing wisdom. Scammers disrupt to hoard. Second, mythic tricksters often suffer consequences. Coyote gets humiliated, Loki bound in venom. Modern fraudsters like Elizabeth Holmes or Billy McFarland initially evade accountability, their chaos unchecked. Finally, genuine trickster energy leaves something valuable in its wake: a new perspective, a corrected injustice. The aftermath of a con is just debris. So how do we guard against the dark trickster? The same way villagers learn to read the kitsune's true form, by questioning surfaces. When an offer seems too flawless, when charm feels rehearsed, when urgency overrides logic, that's when we channel beyond rabbit skepticism. After all, the trickster's greatest gift isn't trust, it's the wisdom to know when to laugh, when to run, and when to see the briar patch for the trap it really is. Trickster energy turns toxic when the laughter stops and the manipulation begins. Think of Loki in his darkest moments, not just playing pranks, but weaving lies so intricate they trap even the gods. In real life, this shows up as gaslighting disguised as humor, where someone insists it's just a joke after undermining your reality. Or the coworker who constantly bends rules not to innovate, but to sabotage others while playing the charming rogue. Healthy tricksters disrupt to reveal truth. Toxic ones create chaos to obscure it. The difference: one holds up a mirror, the other smokes it. Take the classic narcissistic playbook, love bombing followed by devaluation, where affection becomes a bargaining chip. Now imagine it with a trickster's grin, the partner who keeps you off balance with hot and cold behavior, framing their inconsistency as spontaneity. Or the boss who pits teammates against each other with whispered half-truths, then acts shocked when trust erodes. These aren't rebels with a cause, they're emotional arsonists wearing Anansi's mask. Psychology calls this benign violation theory. Humor works when it breaches norms safely, but turns predatory when the violation outweighs the warmth. Spotting the difference starts with 3 red flags. First, disproportionate impact. Harmless pranks leave everyone laughing, but toxic mischief always has a victim. Second, deflection. When confronted, healthy tricksters own their messes. Toxic ones spin new tales to evade accountability. Finally, observe the aftermath. True trickster chaos fertilizes new growth like forest fires that renew ecosystems. Destructive chaos just leaves scorched earth. Setting boundaries doesn't mean rejecting playful energy altogether. Try the sandwich method used by improv troupes. Contain wild creativity between layers of clear expectations. A team might say, "We love your out-of-the-box ideas, and we need reliable data to back them, so keep surprising us. Just document your process." In relationships, this could sound like, "I adore your spontaneity, and I need consistency on big commitments, so surprise me with concert tickets, not broken promises." Reclaiming the trickster's light starts with separating the spark from the wildfire. Think of the Maori trickster Maui fishing up islands versus the Greek sirens drowning sailors. Both disrupt the ocean, but one builds while the other consumes. Surround yourself with tricksters who challenge hierarchies to lift others, not climb over them. Celebrate the colleagues who hack bureaucracy to help teammates, not hoard promotions. Embrace partners whose surprises deepen intimacy rather than keep you guessing. Because when trickster energy is healthy, it doesn't just break rules, it breaks chains. The same wit that could manipulate becomes the courage to speak uncomfortable truths. The creativity that might weave deception instead reweaves broken systems into something more just. What makes this archetype endure isn't its capacity for chaos, but its power to alchemize that chaos into change when guided by something rarer than cleverness: integrity. What if we could harness the trickster's chaos not to tear down, but to build something better? Look at the yes men, those modern-day mischief makers who impersonate corporate executives, staging absurd press conferences to expose greed. In one infamous stunt, they posed as Dow Chemical spokesmen, apologizing for the Bhopal disaster and pledging billions in reparations live on BBC. The fallout was instant: outrage, headlines, and a glaring spotlight on the real Dow's refusal to take responsibility. This isn't just pranking, it's myth-making in real time, using deception to reveal deeper deceptions, just as Anansi's webs once trapped larger truths. Artists have long wielded this same subversive power. Banksy's shredded painting wasn't just a gag, it was a trickster's gambit, turning an auction house into a stage for questioning art's commodification. Or consider the Gorilla Girls, those anonymous activists wearing gorilla masks to skewer sexism in museums with witty billboards like, "Do women have to be naked to get into the Met?" Their anonymity mirrors Loki's disguises, their humor as sharp as Coyote's wit. These aren't just critiques, they're cultural jiu-jitsu, flipping power dynamics with a smirk. Even childhood games hold seeds of this energy. Remember the absurdity of Calvin Ball, that fictional sport from Calvin and Hobbes where rules are invented mid-game. It's pure trickster philosophy. Order emerges from chaos when play is the goal. Modern movements like Extinction Rebellion embrace this, turning climate protests into carnivalesque spectacles, activists gluing themselves to paintings in museums or floating giant pink boats in city squares. The message serious change doesn't always demand solemnity. Sometimes it needs a wink. The key lies in direction. Trickster energy becomes toxic when it serves only the self, like corporate raiders, disrupting industries for profit, not progress. But channeled collectively, it's transformative. Look to the Maori concept of wakapohane, where satirical songs publicly shame wrongdoers into restoring balance. Or the indigenous Australian practice of yarning circles, where humor softens hard truths, making them bearable. These traditions understand what modern psychology confirms. Laughter disarms defenses, creating space for change. So how do we reclaim this archetype wisely? Start by asking whose boundaries you're crossing and why. A prank that punches up at power, like a meme mocking political hypocrisy, follows the trickster's ancient role. One that punches down, like spreading misinformation, betrays it. Playfulness becomes poison when it lacks empathy, when the laughter leaves someone diminished. But at its best, trickster energy is the ultimate equalizer, reminding us that no system, no hierarchy, no truth is too sacred to question, as long as the questioning leaves room for others to rise. Perhaps that's the trickster's final lesson. Chaos isn't the opposite of order, but its dance partner. From courtroom jesters to viral meme makers, those who wield mischief as a mirror don't seek anarchy. They seek a world flexible enough to bend without breaking. Because systems that can't laugh at themselves, that can't withstand a little creative subversion, were already doomed to crumble. The trickster doesn't topple towers out of spite, but to prove which foundations are strong enough to rebuild upon. In Yoruba cosmology, Eshu doesn't just stir trouble. He's the cosmic traffic cop standing at the crossroads of fate, making sure no single force claims absolute control. Picture two farmers praying for opposite weather. One needs rain for crops, the other sun for harvest. Eshu delivers both a storm on one field, blazing heat on the other, not out of malice, but to remind them that balance isn't about fairness. It's about preventing any one power from monopolizing destiny. This mirrors the Taoist concept of yin and yang, where shadow and light eternally dance, each containing the seed of its opposite. The Tao Te Ching puts it perfectly. The straightest path seems crooked, acknowledging that what looks like chaos often holds deeper order. Hindu philosophy takes this further with Leela, the idea that the universe itself is the divine's playful performance, where creation and destruction are just different verses in the same cosmic song. Krishna's childhood antics, stealing butter, confusing villagers with illusions, aren't just charming stories. They're demonstrations that even divinity embraces unpredictability as essential to existence. The Ramayana's monkey god Hanuman embodies this too. He's both devout servant and mischievous shape-shifter, burning cities with his flaming tail one moment, then shrinking to the size of a thumb the next. These aren't contradictions, they're living proof that rigidity fractures while flexibility breathes. Native American traditions weave similar wisdom. The Navajo speak of Hojo, a concept where beauty and harmony emerge from balanced opposites, much like Coyote's blunders inadvertently teach humans to respect nature's rhythms. In one story, Coyote's greed disrupts the salmon run, causing famine, but this disaster forces the tribe to develop sustainable fishing practices. His chaos becomes the catalyst for equilibrium. Even Norse mythology, with its looming Ragnarok, frames destruction as renewal. The old world must burn so the new can rise from its ashes. This cosmic balancing act plays out in our lives too. Ever notice how personal breakthroughs often follow periods of turmoil? A job loss leads to a more fulfilling career. A failed relationship reveals hidden strengths. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth. But trickster myths knew it millennia ago that chaos, when met with adaptability, fertilizes transformation. The Japanese art of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold, embodies this perfectly. The fractures become part of the beauty, just as Eshu's tricks become part of wisdom. Modern science echoes these ancient intuitions. Chaos theory shows how seemingly random systems weather patterns. Stock markets follow hidden patterns where disorder births new forms. Ecologists find that occasional forest fires prevent larger catastrophes by clearing dead wood. Even our immune systems rely on controlled chaos white blood cells, randomly testing mutations until they find the right defense against pathogens. The trickster's role isn't to destroy, but to keep the system supple enough to endure. So what does this mean for your story? Consider the moments when life threw you a curveball, the unexpected breakup, the surprise job offer, the accident that rerouted your path. Like Eshu at the crossroads, these weren't mere disruptions. They were course corrections disguised as chaos. The trickster reminds us that equilibrium isn't static, it's dynamic. A constant readjustment where each stumble holds the potential to step into truer alignment. Your most bewildering detours might be the universe's way of whispering, "This path was too small for you all along." Ever hit a creative wall where your story feels too safe, too predictable? That's when you need to invite the trickster in, not as a villain, but as your muse. Picture this: your protagonist is trapped in a seemingly impossible situation. Instead of brute forcing their way out, what if they pulled a Loki, not with cruelty but with cunning? Maybe they forge an alliance with their enemy's worst critic, or accidentally leak false plans that reveal the real threat. Trickster energy isn't just about chaos, it's about flipping the script so the problem becomes the solution. Try this prompt next time you're stuck. How would Anansi spin this? Suddenly, that block isn't a dead end. It's a web waiting to be woven. Artists have tapped into this for centuries. Shakespeare's Puck doesn't just meddle in A Midsummer Night's Dream. He exposes the absurdity of human love through laughter. Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away gives us No Face, a shape-shifting spirit whose hunger mirrors consumerism's emptiness, a trickster holding up a funhouse mirror to society. Even children's books like Where the Wild Things Are channel this energy when Max sails home to find his supper still warm. The lesson: trickster stories don't just entertain, they comfort by showing that rules can bend, that mistakes can lead somewhere magical. But here's where it gets personal. Ever journaled about a failure only to realize months later that it set you on a better path? That's trickster wisdom in action. Therapists use narrative techniques to help patients reframe trauma, not as endings but as turning points. A divorce becomes the catalyst for self-discovery. A layoff sparks a passion project, like Coyote tumbling down a cliff only to land on a hidden ledge. These stories heal by revealing hidden paths. Try rewriting a painful memory with trickster logic. What if this wasn't a setback but a setup for something I couldn't see yet? Now zoom out. In a world of algorithms and rigid systems, the trickster archetype is evolving. Digital creators are its new ambassadors. Think of how Rick and Morty deconstruct sci-fi tropes while smuggling in existential questions, or how Janelle Monáe's Dirty Computer album uses Afrofuturist mischief to challenge norms. Even AI, that ultimate rule breaker, mirrors trickster duality. It can generate art or deepfakes, solve equations, or spread disinformation. The future belongs to those who harness this energy wisely, disrupting to rebuild, bending tools without breaking ethics. The trickster's final lesson: don't just tell stories, let them transform you. Whether you're drafting a novel, navigating a crisis, or dreaming up a startup, ask, where's the loophole? The double meaning, the chance to turn the trap into a trampoline, because the oldest myths remind us, chaos isn't the enemy of order, it's the workshop where the next chapter gets forged. Algorithms are the new shape-shifters, slipping between identities with a fluidity that would make Loki jealous. One moment, your feed shows heartfelt family photos. The next, it's overrun with conspiracy theories dressed as news, or a deep-fake politician declaring war in flawless Mandarin. These digital tricksters don't just cross boundaries, they erase them, rewriting reality faster than any mythic figure ever could. Take ChatGPT spinning sonnets in the style of Shakespeare or conjuring legal briefs from thin air. It's Anansi weaving stories, but at the speed of light. Yet unlike folklore's tricksters, whose mischief served cosmic balance, AI's chaos lacks intentionality. A viral trend mocking corporate greed might uplift, while that same algorithmic whimsy can amplify hate speech with equal indifference. The parallels to ancient lore are eerie. Deepfakes are our modern doppelgangers, mirroring Eshu's two-faced hat trick, except now, the deception scales exponentially. When a fabricated video of a celebrity endorsing a scam circulates, it's not so different from the kitsune assuming a noblewoman's form to expose human vanity. Even meme culture channels the trickster's subversive wit. Think of the distracted boyfriend, meme repurposed to critique everything from consumerism to climate inaction. These digital folktales spread like wildfire because they do what tricksters have always done: package uncomfortable truths in laughter, smuggling dissent into the mainstream under the guise of humor. But here's where the old myths warn us. In West African stories, Eshu's mischief always carried accountability. He might start a feud between friends, but only to reveal their hidden biases. Our digital tricksters lack that redemption arc. A recommendation algorithm pushing extremist content doesn't learn from its chaos. It optimizes for engagement, indifferent to the societal fractures it widens. The Navajo Coyote tales teach that unchecked trickery leads to disaster, like when his greed disrupts the salmon run, causing famine. Similarly, when AI-generated fake news fuels real-world violence, we're facing Coyote's lesson on a planetary scale. Yet for all its dangers, this digital trickster energy holds revolutionary potential. Anonymous collectives like Anonymous use meme magic to topple corrupt regimes, their Guy Fawkes masks echoing the medieval jester's license to mock kings. Artists like Holly Herndon train AI choirs to sing in uncanny harmonies, turning surveillance tech into tools of beauty. Even ordinary users harness this power, like the TikTok grandmothers who hijacked a Trump rally hashtag with bread recipes, flooding the discourse with domestic warmth instead of division. These acts follow the oldest trickster playbook: disrupt to rebalance, confuse to enlighten. The challenge now is to cultivate trickster wisdom alongside our tools. Indigenous cultures often contain their tricksters within rituals. The Yoruba consulted Ifa priests to interpret Eshu's riddles. The Norse bound Loki with his son's entrails. Our equivalent might be algorithmic transparency, digital literacy education, or adversarial design that pits AIs against each other to expose flaws. Because the trickster isn't going anywhere, they're just evolving, from Coyote's howl to ChatGPT's pixelated grin, and perhaps that's as it should be. After all, in an age of rigid binaries and polarized certainties, we might just need these digital disruptors to whisper, like Anansi spinning his web. The truth was never simple. Now, less than ever, think about the last few years: the lockdowns, the shifting rules, the sense that the world had become both fragile and inflexible all at once. Now remember the memes, the toilet paper hoarding jokes, the Tiger King obsession, the videos of people pretending to be on Zoom calls while actually still in pajamas. That wasn't just distraction, it was survival. In the face of unbearable tension, humor became our collective trickster. poking holes in the absurdity and letting us breathe again. When a nurse posted a TikTok dancing in an empty hospital hallway, or when Banksy smuggled pandemic-themed art into subway cars, they weren't just lightening the mood, they were doing what tricksters have always done, revealing cracks in the system so we could see through them. Protest movements have harnessed this same energy. During the George Floyd uprisings, activists projected giant images of police brutality onto precinct walls, turning their own facades into accusations. In Hong Kong, protesters used laser pointers to blind surveillance cameras, outwitting authoritarian eyes with literal flashes of brilliance. These aren't just tactics, they're modern trickster myths in action. Like Anansi stealing stories from the sky god or Coyote tricking the monster into swallowing itself, these acts use cunning to reclaim power. Even the yellow umbrellas of the umbrella movement became trickster symbols, ordinary objects transformed into shields against tear gas, proving that creativity can armor the vulnerable. But here's the crucial shift. Today's tricksters aren't just characters in stories, they're us. Every time you share a meme that exposes hypocrisy, every time you use satire to deflect a bully, every time you bend a rule to help someone the system ignores, you're channeling that ancient archetype. The difference is we've forgotten how to recognize it in ourselves. We've been taught to equate rebellion with irresponsibility, when in truth, the healthiest societies rely on citizens who can question, adapt, and occasionally laugh in the face of dogma. This isn't about chaos for chaos' sake. The trickster's wisdom lies in knowing when to disrupt and when to rebuild. A prank that humiliates a coworker isn't trickster energy, it's cruelty in a jester's hat. But whistleblowing on corporate malfeasance through clever leaks, that's classic Loki. The line is simple. Does the mischief serve something larger than itself? Does it, like Eshu at the crossroads, ultimately guide people toward clarity? So here's the invitation. Stop waiting for tricksters to appear in myths or movies. Honor the one inside you, the part that knows when to play the fool to expose a truth, when to bend the rules to fix what's broken, when to laugh so you don't collapse under the weight of it all. The world is rigid enough. We don't just need tricksters, we need to remember we've always been them. The stories were just training wheels, now it's our turn to ride. The trickster's greatest paradox isn't just that they break the rules, it's that they do it to protect the very fabric of culture. Think of them as the immune system of storytelling, attacking complacency so wisdom can thrive. Loki's lies in Asgard don't just sow discord, they expose the gods' arrogance before it becomes their downfall. Anansi's webs don't just trap flies, they snare pride, forcing the mighty to kneel and the overlooked to rise. Even in their most chaotic moments, tricksters act as guardians, ensuring no single truth hardens into dogma, no hierarchy grows too rigid to adapt. They're the storm that strips dead branches, yes, but also the wind that carries new seeds. This duality echoes across traditions. The Cherokee tell of rabbit outwitting bear not to mock strength, but to remind the forest that cunning and courage must coexist. The Maori celebrate Maui slowing the sun not for chaos, but so crops have time to grow and fishermen can return safely. Every culture that survives understands vitality demands friction. Too much order and a society petrifies, too much chaos and it shatters. Tricksters dance on that knife's edge, their laughter the sound of balance being struck. That's why these figures endure not as relics but as mirrors. When a stand-up comedian roasts political hypocrisy or a hacker exposes corruption, they're walking the trickster's ancient path. The methods change, TikTok skits instead of tall tales, deep fakes instead of divine disguises, but the purpose remains, to jolt us awake, to question what we've accepted as unchangeable. The trickster whispers that progress isn't a straight path, but a spiral, looping through disruption and renewal. So the next time you encounter a rule that feels arbitrary, a system that seems immovable, ask yourself, how would Coyote crack this? What web would Anansi weave? Because the trickster's ultimate gift isn't just their stories, it's the permission they give us to challenge our own. As the Cherokee proverb goes, the trickster is the storm that prunes the tree. And in a world that's always changing, we could all use a little pruning. Now we'd love to hear from you. Which trickster tale reshaped how you see the world? Was it a rabbit's cunning, Loki's layered schemes, or perhaps a modern mischief maker who made you rethink the rules? Drop your favorites in the comments, and if you're hungry for more mythic wisdom, hit subscribe. After all, the best stories, like the best tricksters, always leave you wanting just one more.